This program is brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
Tonight on First Issues, we discuss what the implications of Botswana being placed as a high-risk third country in terms of money laundering by the EU are. We are then told of the different players within the insurance industry, touching on local ownership versus foreign participation. And finally, Professor Kieran Bagat tells us what the true value of sleep is for the productivity conscious. Welcome to the show. Just this month, the European Union revealed it had placed Botswana on their list of high-risk third countries in terms of money laundering. A worrying development from Botswana's biggest market in terms of beef exports. This listing follows findings from a June 2016 site visit by the Financial Action Task Force regional body to Botswana that assessed the country's financial institutions, regulatory bodies, and legal frameworks and policies, and found them terribly wanting in terms of their understanding of international money laundering and terrorist financing trends. Reading the 100-page report makes it difficult to counter its claims. It paints a picture of a country in which money gotten through ill gain is easy to move around, whether it be through corruption or other forms of crime. It also illustrates a system ill-equipped to identify, investigate, and prosecute perpetrators of such crimes. It is a bad mark on Botswana's international reputation, and tonight we inquire as to how the listing is most likely to affect both business and the individual. Speaking to Chief Risk Officer at FNB Botswana, Lesego Bannalotle.
Currently, we are on what we call the grey listing, but it's important to highlight that there isn't much of a difference between the grey list as well as the blacklist. Before I answer that, I just want to give a background as to what were the deficiencies that were found by ISAMLAG on Botswana. Our anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regime was not fully developed. Our legal framework was lacking in several aspects, and the fact that there was actually not a lot of implementation of the AML framework. So in terms of the grey listing, the impact is negative for Botswana in many different ways. If I can just unpack firstly the implications on the financial institutions. Already we've seen that some regulatory bodies have already issued cautionaries to their institutions in different countries such as the US to advise them that when dealing with counterparties from Botswana, they need to ensure that they do enhanced due diligence. That has an impact on a lot of our trade, because when transferring money, there could be delays in getting payments across because the receiving banks would need to do a further analysis to ensure that the money is actually legit and clean. In some cases, what the industry is seeing, being the banking industry, is that some intermediary banks are actually returning customer funds due to this grey listing. And what that means is that they're not processing transactions that are coming from Botswana. This has a negative impact on customers because if you have a supplier who you're engaging and you're paying overseas, if their bank has got that policy, it means that they will not receive your funds and you will not be able to get those goods. In addition to that, there is also impact that is being felt on the asset managers, because generally the pension funds take the money that we contribute and try and invest them in higher return assets. So a lot of the offshore managers also do have policies that say that if a country is on the grey list, they have to be cautious when receiving their money. And in some cases, they're actually asking those asset managers to start unwinding their positions with them. Another impact on trade is that There could be loss of commercial partners like offshore investors because they might not want to be associated with companies that are from a jurisdiction that has actually been listed. So they would also need to do enhanced due diligence on the funds that are coming from those countries. In some instances, they do what we call de-risking, which is where you have a policy that says you will no longer deal with such and such a company because it is in a high-risk jurisdiction. Just on the general public, what we also anticipate is that there could be an impact even on visas when traveling, whereas a lot of countries may have granted visas to people from Botswana. Now, with us being placed on this list, there will be a lot more caution. I must say, though, that I have not yet heard of this happening, but these are possible things that could impact us.
So there is a genuine need to be concerned at the current moment. Viewers at home are probably asking themselves how long they can anticipate for this state of affairs to go on for. What timelines are we looking at?
The government is actually engaging in a lot of activities to try and get us off the grey list, which is why last year we saw a lot of legislation being passed, which is anti-money laundering legislation, such as your Financial Intelligence Act, your nuclear policies around Botswana, how we manage those things. And this is all in an effort to ensure that Botswana does not get on from the grey list onto the black list. So there is quite a lot of government initiatives that are happening. In terms of timelines, it is not easy to say, but our understanding is that the government has been given up to a year to actually complete certain agreed actions, after which the Financial Action Task Force will review these and then make a decision as to whether Botswana is removed from the grey listing or it actually falls then into the blacklisting.
Do you agree with the findings from the task force sent to assess anti-money laundering practices by Botswana's institutions?
I believe the findings were fair because it's a dialogue between the reviewing body and the government. Most of the findings the government did concede to, as per the report. It does highlight that. But obviously there are areas which we need to focus on as Botswana, and this is where a lot of our government efforts is actually concentrated. And the efforts that we've been seeing in terms of legislation being passed, new acts and new laws, a lot more. For example, if I can take the company's registration, there's a lot of enhancements that are happening there to make sure that ultimate beneficiary owners, as an example, are known. And those are all initiatives that contribute towards ensuring that Botswana is compliant with the anti-money laundering global acceptable practices.
As FNB, how have you been affected and how is the bank responding?
The impact that we are feeling is mainly on our customers with regards to international payments, but not all international payments. There have been a few instances where customers' funds have been returned by intermediary banks. This is something that we've taken cognizance of, and it's something that is to be expected. Another impact is that correspondent banks are doing a lot more enhanced due diligence on us as a bank within Botswana. So what would happen is that they ask questions in terms of what are your anti-money laundering controls, what do you have in place, and I'm confident to say thus far they've been very satisfied with our controls internally, as well as all the controls within the banking system.
In conclusion, what should we all keep in mind at this current stage?
Whilst it's not happening on a great scale right now, we anticipate that at some point, if this continues or if we go into the blacklist, when a customer is trying to transfer funds to another jurisdiction, since Botswana may at that time, if we are not able to overcome this, be classified as a high-risk country, there'll be delays in payments because the receiving bank would need to do enhanced due diligence to make sure that the money that is being received, they would need to establish what is the source of funds, what is the intent of the funds, as an example. There will be a lot more questions that are asked from our customers than currently are being done. And if I can just highlight the value of KYC, especially at a time like this, if you are doing transfers, let's say to another country, it's important that they know that information is available already in the bank, so they do understand who is sending those funds, what is the source of funds of that person, so for customer convenience, so that there isn't any delay in trying to establish who is the owner of those funds, where did they get them from, as an example. So KYC actually helps to protect the customer and also enhances the customer service experience for them.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues. The Executive Director of Gray Insurance Brokers has been on this program before, enlightening us as to the important role as well as immense potential the insurance industry has in Botswana. Not only can individuals and businesses mitigate huge financial risks throughout their lives, but the long-term nature of their premiums generate millions of pula that can be invested in building long-term infrastructure assets such as roads, ports, power plants, dams, and more that are crucial to nation building. Employment opportunities are also increased by big investments, leading to capital formation in the economy. Tonight, we are educated as to the different players within an industry that we believe should be better utilized for the diversification of Botswana's economy and for job creation.
The industry structure is in three folds, simplest of them all. First will be the agents and the brokers. These are the intermediaries who deal with customers and the insurance or the underwriter. And then you have the second layer, which is the insurance or the underwriter. These are the risk takers who are willing to cover an individual and or company for the risks that they are exposed to. Then you have reinsurers. These reinsurers are the ones that support the underwriters, particularly when the risk is massive. As you know, some of the risks that we are incurring could be bigger than what the capital or the risk that the underwriters are willing to partake. So they share the risks with the reinsurers. So these are the three layers. And I must say, it first starts with an individual. So that's the first place of start. Either an individual or a company or an entity, then agent, then underwriter, then reinsurer.
Why is there an intermediary between me as the consumer and the insurance provider? Why does there need to be a broker in between?
The need of a broker can be simplified in terms of one, the broker exists to first look at the requirements of a client, to come up with insurance programs or to come up with products that can best suit the client and structure those products to suit the client, then negotiate on behalf of a client with an insurance company, therefore representing the needs of a client, because the broker would have had the time to sit down, understand the client's need, then structure an insurance program that suits the client's needs. So we believe that the broker is important because the broker is there to support the client. Not only is it all about the product, as well as when there's a claim, the broker will be able to assist the client in terms of ensuring the claim goes through the insurance company. So it's a person who holds the client hand on hand, particularly some of us might not understand the insurance product fully. A broker will be there to assist them in ensuring that they carry them throughout that process of insurance.
It is understood that the majority of insurance providers in this country, however, are foreign owned. What is Why is that so? Why is there such a low participation by Botswana at that level?
First and foremost, insurance is not expensive. It's not an inexpensive business to go into. It is expensive in terms of capital requirements. It is expensive in terms of ability to fully analyze the risks that are associated with the products, because it requires people who are highly qualified and trained in those industries for them to be effective at what they've done. That being said, we believe that the majority of the businesses are still foreign owned because the insurance industry is still evolving. There are already one or two players who have come into the industry, Botswana, or Botswana entities who have shown an interest in that space, but those are entities that have sufficient capital to invest in that space. The other area that we should see a lot of Botswana participating in is that of a broker or agent. The number is growing. There's more interest in that space. There is still a need for more Botswana to play a role, particularly in the broking space. There are few brokerages that exist. The majority of Botswana are actually participating at agency level, which is different from being a broker. And we're still seeing a lot of foreign participation in terms of brokers. Maybe because Botswana have not either shown enough interest of being brokers, or they do not see themselves, or they do not believe that is a business worth going, but would like to encourage all to consider, because it's still a very lucrative space to go into. And it will enable us to penetrate more the industry that is still not well penetrated on.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world. Because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back. It is time for Own Your Day, Own Your Life. Professor Kiran Bhagat enlightens us as to the important health aspect that is sleep, which greatly affects not only your mood, but your memory, learning, and more.
It's a really important subject, Ahmed, and we wouldn't be doing it justice just in a few minutes, but the whole revolution that has resulted in sleep medicine, it's a whole specialty on its own, has occurred because of our understanding of the processes that go on during sleep. The physiology, which basically means the biological processes that only occur during sleep, that don't occur when you're awake. You know, in very simple terms, when you're awake, you're collecting information. You know, you're collecting information about people that you meet, things that you learn, things that you read, interactions with people. At night, you consolidate that learning. We've understood that the memory is consolidated at night. The brain packages, and it's like a bookshelf. During the day, all the papers are strewn all over the place because you're learning things. At night, the brain packs it away into bookshelves. And if you don't sleep well, and this particularly applies to our younger generation, you know, particularly teenagers that don't like to sleep, that have, you know, late hours, you're not consolidating that memory. Those who, for example, cram before exams are not learning very much because your memory is not being consolidated at night. We also know that during sleep, you go through an amazing, fantastic, the brain goes through a revolution, if you like. You know, the dream states that you go through. We know that, for example, everybody dreams. We know that if you cut short your sleep cycle so that you skip the dream element, certain things don't occur. We know that sicknesses occur in people who lack sleep. We know that people who do shift work, people who are night workers, suffer a higher incidence of mortality, have a longer lifespan, rather a shorter lifespan, have a greater tendency towards cancer, have a greater tendency towards diabetes, have a greater tendency towards obesity, because we know that certain hormones are released only during sleep in its cleanup process. If you like, the cleanup work, the housework, the homework that is done, the cleanup, the vacuum cleaning, if you like, is occurring at night. We know, for example, the brain cleanses itself at night, and only at night. There are certain processes called the glymphatic system, which is a system in the brain that actually literally sucks the brain out. All the liquid, the brain becomes lighter at night, because all the liquid that was built up during the day is actually cleaned out and washed out at night, and you get a fresh set of cerebrospinal fluid during the day. This only occurs during the night, and we know that if you don't have consistent sleep at night, then these toxins build up in the brain. We know that the incidence of Alzheimer's and dementia and forgetfulness is high in people that don't sleep enough. When we ask how one should sleep, one should generally sleep between 7.5 to 8 hours at night, irrespective of your age. We know that teenagers should actually sleep probably between 9 and 10 hours of sleep, and we know that they don't get that sleep. We know that the results of insomnia, we know that the results of people sleeping later and later is the junk light that we have, the lights that are in the studio, you know, that are not sunlight. And we know that before the advent of the light bulb, we would go to sleep when dusk was there, when the sun would set, because there was no electricity. Now we're extending that lifespan, that day span, if you like, and the brain is getting confused. We know that people that work like you and me indoors all the time are not stimulated by the sunlight. We know sunlight affects the way the brain switches on sleep hormones, and so you don't feel tired, you don't feel sleepy. We know that the blue light from a cell phone, from the iPad, from the screen, the computer screen, actually convinces the brain that it's still daylight, because it's a blue light, and the blue light the brain misperceives as sunlight, as the blue sky, and so doesn't want to sleep. So the sleep hormone, which is called melatonin, is not switched on, and that's why you don't sleep. And that's why teenagers don't sleep at night, and then they have this fatigue over the following morning. They can't concentrate at work. What happens at school when they can't concentrate? They feel that their sugars are dropping. They go for a can of Coke. So you get into this very terrible cycle. So this is the reason why we need, one, to understand that sleep is very important. It's nature's nurse, if you like. Number two, you need to get between 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep. Number three, a whole biological process occurs at night, which cleanses the system. And if those processes don't occur, you are in trouble in terms of daytime diseases that we've talked about before.
This program was brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?